Hey everybody, how are you? This is Jim Prizak, Pain PT, and thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate all the subscribers and people's likes. So spread the word. I'm trying to help as many people as I can get out of chronic pain and chronic symptoms. If you're looking for any support on your journey, just reach out. I work with a lot of people all over the world, and I'm happy to help you on your journey out of pain. So today we're going to talk about continuing discussion um, of working and changing your brain, since this is where a lot of chronic pain and chronic symptoms originate from. And I'm going to use this analogy today of a river. And the title of this is Let Your River Run Through You. Now, what is this river? The river is a discharge from your brain. Okay, and we're talking about your emotional brain, your amygdala, the limbic part of your brain, the irrational sort of reptilian brain. This is the part of the brain that's been shown to be overactive in people with chronic pain. Now, what does this part of the brain discharge? Well, it's discharging thoughts, discharging feelings, emotions, discharging symptoms. Now, it's going from that part of your brain into your body, into the other parts of your brain. This is the river. Okay, so imagine this river flowing through you. Sometimes the river is flowing great. There's positive thoughts, there's positive feelings, no symptoms. And other times the river is flowing with the opposite. Sometimes there's negative thoughts, a lot of heightened emotions, elevated symptoms. Regardless of what's flowing through you, I want you to let it flow, period. Because this is a discharge from your brain. And if we can let it flow without trying to stop it, it eventually goes away. Now I'm going to explain to you how this works, or how to practice this, I guess. So let's come back to this image or visualization of a river flowing through you, thoughts, feelings, and symptoms. I'm going to ask you to turn on this part of your brain now, which is called the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe, insular cortex, ACC. These are the parts of your brain that are active in what's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a part of your brain that we need to activate for the interpretation of what the emotional brain is giving us. Otherwise, if we're not mindful, if we haven't turned on the prefrontal cortex area, we're a victim to the emotional brain. We're just going to go along for the ride with this river. When we turn on mindfulness, we're strengthening that cortex of our brain, which we know is weak in chronic pain. It's been shown in the research. And we're also downregulating or quieting down the amygdala in the emotional brain when we become mindful. So it has a dual effect that's therapeutic for pain conditions and chronic symptoms. And essentially, when you turn on this frontal part of your brain with mindfulness, I liken it to sitting on the banks of your river. So instead of you being in this river of negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative symptoms, uncomfortable symptoms, where you're taken along for a ride, when you're mindful, you've stepped back. There's a part of you here now, this cortex, that's observing this go by now. It's observing your river go by. So essentially, you're sitting on the banks of your own river, watching and observing this river of thoughts, feelings, and symptoms go by. That's it. Imagine you sitting on a bank of a river. Do you feel safe when you're sitting on the bank of a river, even if it's flowing strongly, even if there's a lot of turbulence in that river? Yes, of course you do. Now, what happens if you were to go in and dam up this river? Okay, you're observing your river. All of a sudden, you've got a lot of symptoms. You've got a lot of anxiety, a lot of heightened emotions. You've got a lot of negative thoughts you don't like. You don't want these thoughts. You don't want these feelings. You don't want these symptoms. What do? We create a dam in our river. We block it. It can't flow anymore. So what it does, it gets stuck. And like a dam with water, it starts to build, 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 build. Now, what is this called? It's called suppression, or even worse, repression. We're blocking this flow because we don't like it. We don't want it. But when we do that, it doesn't go away. It might help for the moment, but we know in the research is when we suppress thoughts and emotions, they actually just get stronger. And we know that it doesn't turn off the amygdala. The amygdala stays active when we suppress. It's not quieting down. So when we start to open again and we take down this dam, there might be a lot of backed up water, so to speak, a lot of feelings, a lot of symptoms, a lot of negative thoughts. That's okay. We want to let that start to flow again. Okay, we want to let that flow through us. And if we do, it starts to calm down, just like a swollen river after a big storm. It has to take all that water downstream, and once it does, the river calms down and it's back to just a natural flowing river. Okay? So as long as you're on the banks of this river and you don't dam it up, it's going to flow. These things are going to flow from your brain. They're going to be discharged from the emotional brain into the body, which creates emotions and symptoms. You also notice mental thoughts. If you don't do anything about those and you just observe from a mindful place, that is actually allowing the discharge to take place, and eventually it settles down in time. Now, there's one other thing we do to our river in us. We calmly do. Now, when we block it up with that dam, that's called resistance. And I've talked about this in another video. So resistance is one way we stop our thoughts, feelings, and symptoms from happening. The other thing we do with this river in us is we actually jump in our own river and get taken downstream. Okay, so what I mean by this is we're sitting there observing, we're watching, all of a sudden some negative thoughts pop up, let's say. Now they come from, this emotional limbic brain. It's preconscious, faster than your conscious mind. You can't stop it, so you don't want to. But they pop up, and all of a sudden we jump onto them and create more negative thoughts consciously. That's jumping in our river. And we get taken downstream. We get taken way downstream into maybe negative thinking, catastrophizing, worrying, freaking out, anxiety, panic. And we don't realize that we are actually doing this because we're not mindful enough to catch it in the moment. So next thing you know, we're 5 miles downstream. That's okay though. Don't worry about it. That's okay if you get taken way downstream. It's also okay if you notice yourself damming up your river. The key thing is, as soon as you catch yourself doing that, you step out of your river onto the banks again and just become mindful and notice the flow. The work here is actually staying on the banks of your own river and being okay watching whatever is flowing by flow by. Because sometimes it's painful. Sometimes what's flowing through you is a lot of pain. Sometimes what's flowing through you is a lot of negative emotions. Sometimes what's flowing through you are crazy thoughts. But I'm here to tell you, if you let them flow, they flow out of you. They change. They shift. So this is the practice here. Hope this analogy is helpful for you guys of letting your river flow through you and the reasons why you want to do this. And I find it's a very simple approach because there's nothing you need to do. There's nothing you need to heal, nothing you need to treat or fix. All you have to do is strengthen this prefrontal cortex, part of your brain, which is sitting on the banks of your river, and letting the amygdala and emotional brain just discharge all this stuff from your past, from your present, whatever this stuff is. And there's nothing to be concerned about. Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you guys today. Reach out if you got questions about this, don't quite understand it. It is a practice. Somatic tracking I have on here is one way to strengthen your mindfulness. But I want you guys to do this throughout the day, because 10 minutes or whatever in mindfulness practice isn't enough. What are you doing for the rest of your day? You're probably building dams in your river, and you're probably jumping in the river all day long. So see if you can catch yourself. Every time you turn this mindfulness on, you're strengthening the frontal part of your brain. You're changing your brain patterns to heal. All right, take care. Bye-bye, guys.